Welcome to my royal YouTube channel. Please subscribe my YouTube channel. Kyle Shaw, 37, was accused of sending messages to 64-year-old Shirley from 2017 to 2023. Last week he appeared at South Sefton Magistrates Court in Bootle, Merseyside, charged with stalking and a separate charge of possessing cannabis. The charge stated that at an address in Birkenhead, Shaw pursued a course of conduct, namely sending messages online, which amounted to stalking, causing Shirley Ballas serious alarm or distress. It added this had a substantial adverse effect on her usual day-to-day activities. The case comes 5 months after Shirley said she called in police over a man seen taking pictures of her house and car. She said he also lunged at her, and investigating officers had since confiscated his phone and computer. Shirley added, "I like to be kind of like a free bird, but we're coming into times now where you have to be more vigilant of yourself. You're upping your level of alarms. And I always tell my mom, I'm here, I've arrived. I wouldn't bother normally, but it's become a thing that we do. I always like to say, I'm safe, I'm in the right place, I'm where I should be." Thankfully the BBC's duty of care towards me has been 1000%. They have been fantastic. So, in some of these instances, when it was difficult, this stalker came from the north of England. I had somebody walking me from the hotel. They checked in on me to make sure that I was okay. I just felt very well protected. It is not known whether that investigation is linked to Shaw, who suffers from mental health issues and is expected to claim he is not fit to enter a plea. He made no pleas in court, while his address was given as a YMCA in Birkenhead. Prosecutor Angela Conlon said that he was responsible for persistent actions over a prolonged period spanning from 2017 to 2023. She went on, "It is Category 2 harm, some distress caused, changes to lifestyle to avoid contact." Shaw was represented by solicitor Sarah Ferguson, who said, "There are significant issues that need explanation at this particular time. I'm not comfortable taking instructions. It is a fitness to plead issue. He is under the care of the Wirral Mental Health." District Judge Wendy Lloyd said, "On the face of it, it is simple enough to be dealt with here, but that needs consent." Shaw was bailed to appear at Liverpool Crown Court on January 31. Conditions included not to contact or approach Shirley Ballas or by any means including social media. The spotlight's shadow. Shirley Ballas stood at the edge of the empty dance studio, the polished wooden floor glinting under the overhead lights. To the outside world, she was the Queen of Latin, a celebrated judge on the nation's favorite dance show, a woman who exuded grace and poise. But tonight, as the echoes of applause faded into silence, Shirley was simply a woman haunted. For 6 years, her life had been invaded, her every move scrutinized by an invisible specter. The messages began innocuously enough, fan mail, she had thought at first. Then came the odd comments about what she was wearing, where she had been, and who she had spoken to. By the time she realized the fixation wasn't innocent admiration, it was too late. The words had turned darker, laced with venom, each message a thread in a web tightening around her life that a glittering prison. The public adored Shirley. They saw her twirl in elegant dresses, her smile radiant as she offered critique to hopeful contestants. But beneath the surface, her world was crumbling. The stalker's messages followed her wherever she went, handwritten letters slid under her dressing room door, cryptic texts on her phone, even notes left on her car windshield. "I see you, Shirley," one read. Simple words, yet they carried the weight of 1,000 nightmares. She installed security cameras, changed her phone number, and moved homes more times than she could count. But the dread lingered. Each time she stepped out of her house, she scanned her surroundings, her heart pounding at every unfamiliar face. The glittering world of dance became her prison, each performance a facade to mask the fear gnawing at her soul. Whispers in the courtroom. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with tension. Shirley sat at the front, her posture as composed as ever, though her hands gripped the edge of the bench. Facing her was the man who had stolen her peace, his expression unreadable. The prosecutor's voice echoed through the chamber. For 6 years, Ms. Ballas has endured persistent and serious alarm or distress caused by the defendant's actions. This is not mere fandom, this is stalking. Shirley's mind drifted as the prosecutor detailed the evidence. She thought of the sleepless nights, the times she had jumped at shadows, and the weight of carrying this alone. She had kept it from her family for years, not wanting to burden them, but the isolation had been suffocating. Her gaze shifted to the jury, their faces a mix of empathy and unease. Did they truly understand what it meant to live in fear? To feel like prey in your own life? The first letter. The first letter had arrived 6 years ago, just after she joined the dance competition's judging panel. It was handwritten in elegant cursive, praising her talent and beauty. Shirley had been touched at first, placing it among the pile of fan mail she received regularly. But the letters kept coming, each one more personal than the last. The writer knew details about her life that she hadn't shared publicly, her favorite cafe, the park where she walked her dog, even the brand of perfume she wore. It was unsettling, but Shirley brushed it off, convincing herself it was harmless admiration. That illusion shattered the day she found a note taped to her dressing room mirror. "Why didn't you wear red today? You looked better last week." The message chilled her. How had they known she was in the dressing room? Who could get past security, a life under siege? As the years passed, the stalking intensified. The letters turned to emails, the tone shifting from admiration to hostility. When Shirley stopped responding altogether, the messages grew more threatening. "You think you're untouchable. You're not." The words were etched into her mind, a constant reminder of her vulnerability. Every knock at the door made her flinch. Every unexpected phone call sent her heart racing. She couldn't even enjoy her passion for dance without feeling the stalker's presence lurking in the background. Her colleagues noticed the change. "Are you okay, Shirley?" they would ask, concern evident in their eyes. But she always smiled and brushed it off. Admitting the truth felt like letting the stalker win, the breaking point. It was a cold winter night when Shirley reached her breaking point. She was driving home from a late rehearsal when she noticed the headlights in her rearview mirror. At first, she thought nothing of it, until the car followed her onto 3 different turns. Her hands trembled as she gripped the steering wheel, her breaths shallow and quick. She pulled into a well-lit petrol station, hoping the car would pass. Instead, it parked a few spaces away. A figure stepped out, hooded and unrecognizable, and began walking toward her. Panic surged through her veins. Shirley locked her doors and dialed 999, her voice trembling as she explained the situation. The police arrived minutes later, but by then, the figure had disappeared. That night, she knew she couldn't handle this alone any longer. She contacted a solicitor and filed for a restraining order. But even that wasn't enough to stop the relentless harassment. A small victory. Back in the courtroom, Shirley listened as the prosecutor recounted that night. The defense argued that the defendant had no intention of causing harm, that it was a case of misunderstood admiration. Shirley clenched her fists. Misunderstood admiration didn't account for the sleepless nights, the anxiety attacks, the constant fear. She had spent 6 years looking over her shoulder, her life a shadow of what it once was. No one deserved that. When the jury returned with their verdict, she held her breath. Guilty. The word echoed in her mind, a small but significant victory. Tears welled in her eyes as she realized the nightmare was finally over, or at least, the beginning of its end, healing in the spotlight. In the weeks that followed, Shirley began to rebuild her life. The restraining order provided some comfort, but the scars of the ordeal remained. She threw herself into her work, finding solace in the rhythm of dance. The studio became her sanctuary, a place where she could reclaim her sense of control. Her story resonated with others. Fans sent messages of support, sharing their own experiences with stalking and harassment. For the first time, Shirley felt a sense of community, a reminder that she wasn't alone. She also began advocating for stronger protections for stalking victims. "This isn't just my story," she said in an interview. "It's the story of countless others who suffer in silence. We need to do better." Moving forward. On the surface, Shirley was the same poised and graceful woman the public had always known. But beneath the surface, she had changed. She was stronger, more resilient, and determined to ensure that no one else would endure what she had. As she stood on the stage during the season finale of the dance competition, the applause thundered around her. For the first time in years, she felt truly free. The spotlight was no longer a prison, it was a beacon, illuminating the path forward, and as the music swelled and the contestants took their final bow, Shirley smiled. This was her moment, her victory, her dance.